have a lot of updates, but I'll try to keep them very quick. I want to make sure Julie gets plenty of time to discuss her topic today. I don't have COVID updates. It's always good, right? I have a positive Ebola update. Numbers are not really tricking up as much as I was worried about, so that's good. And also, it appears that this strain is more mild. Mortality is only at about 20% versus expected 30 to 40%. So I guess that's all good news. Now, the milder disease can also mean spreading more, but we're not seeing that. So I'll keep an eye on statistics, but I think we're not going to hit tens of thousands of cases and thousands of deaths. I think hopefully things will remain lower. Now, to the couple of more important updates from just global perspective that are more applicable to us immediately. So if you're taking glucosamine, you need to listen to this. So I'm going to put the link to the much more detailed discussion on the YouTube channel. As always, if you're not subscribed, you're missing out. Please do so. So the link is in the chat now. So there's a study that's been published just a couple of weeks ago about glucosamine increasing risk of Alzheimer's disease. Now, that seems to be only the issue when patients already experiencing memory loss. If you're a healthy person, you don't have any history of memory decline, you don't have family history of Alzheimer's disease, you probably don't need to worry about this at all. The problem is that the study outlined a very clear reasoning why there could be a concern for people taking glucosamine and memory loss. Glucosamine seems to be increasing glycosylation products. So the sugar molecules in our system, when they're not handled properly, they end up being glycosylated. They end up having pieces of molecules added to them, which makes them harder to process and which makes them more toxic and which causes an oxidative stress and free radical formation. So it turned out that there is a mechanism by which glucosamine can activate this pathway. This was not previously known. I was not aware of this. This is a shocking, and it is changing of the practice. So if you have a problem with memory, if you have Alzheimer's disease and you're taking glucosamine, you need to stop immediately because the data is quite clear. The data is very confusing because it contradicts prior data. Previously, we have seen the data in non-controlled trials that when patients are taking glucosamine, they have a lower risk of Alzheimer's and they have a longer life. So how do you reconciliate this very two opposite results? Well, it may be that glucosamine allows us to move better, and as such, it helps us to keep our brain and body healthier longer. But once the memory loss begins, once the Alzheimer's is in place, then maybe glucosamine is actually becoming more of a harm than benefit. So this topic will definitely get a lot more attention. For now, check out the video. The links are in the description. If you are my patient and you're worried about something, have a personal question, obviously you can stay till 3 p.m. and we will address that more. A couple other real quick things. So those of you who have been mocking me about why I haven't shared most recent memory program open house, I'm sorry I was busy, but here's the link. I finally did that. Now, that is not going to get advertised on anywhere on the media because remember, CIM open houses on memory are for everybody, but we don't advertise them. They're just for our followers. And last but not least, if you have missed last week and you missed the importance of fasting before chemotherapy for any cancer treatments, this is conversation with Dr. Sadral Sadot and Dr. Orser. Here's the link. So, and with that, let's do a couple of questions that may be burning in people's minds, and we'll pass it on to Julie. And as general reminder, if you're my patient and you need to talk to me, just stay here after the meeting. All right. Questions, concerns. Anything doesn't keep you asleep well at night, everybody. We just recorded 2 amazing podcasts. Stay tuned. So one was with Victoria Mazes from University of Arizona about her new book, which is laying here somewhere. It's a Healing Reflex, Heal Faster, the book. So as soon as the podcast is out, we'll let you know. And then the other one was with Albert Garcia from Hopkins, who is the lead researcher on the psychedelics, psilocybin for Alzheimer's disease study, and we've discussed this crazy case, which we think is unethically published, about the woman who sort of miraculously got cured with one dose of psilocybin from Alzheimer's disease. We think either the case is total bogus or there's just some real big problems with this. Is the glucosamine glycosylation the same process? Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's just, Julie, I think there's some subtleties of differences between different ages formations, but in general, that's exactly how I would frame it, that this is a N-glycosylated end products, and glucosamine just does this somewhat slightly different, but we can put them all in the same category because all of that process tends to trigger oxidative stress. So the end product of harm is the same. Yeah, so Linda, great question. I don't know. We don't know. So this study is going to spike a pretty sizable amount of further research. I just don't know how to answer your question because this wasn't asked. So the question is really critical, right? So if you have a risk for Alzheimer's down the road, which of course a lot of us do, right? I mean, the general, if you made it past 80, your risk of Alzheimer's, just all-comer risk, is around 30%, if not higher. So should you be worried about this? And in my mind, this is a new data and it's kind of very concerning. I've started taking glucosamine a couple of years ago when I started hearing crackling in my right knee when I was doing the squats. And the crackling actually got better, and I don't have any joint pains, but I'm very active, and so I said, well, why not? Like, what's the harm here? Well, so now I'm scratching my head and saying, well, maybe I should be more careful. But I think that's the nature of science, right? I mean, you question continuously what is and what isn't. And I'm gonna keep taking glucosamine myself for time being because I think the support for joints for me is more important. But of course, if any additional data comes out saying there is a long-term harm for those who've been taking it in the past, even before they got any memory problems, although arguably I can say I have memory problems, but I've always had them. So I don't know. I hope I'm not getting Alzheimer's, but if I will, I hope people I train will take care of me well. All right. Well, we can take a couple more minutes. We can go to 2:15, I think. So a couple more questions if anybody has. If not, then I would be happy to yield time to Julia. All right. Okay. Correct. So yeah, most of my memory problems are attention problems. Those of you who don't realize that I have a moderate attention deficit disorder shouldn't be surprised, but I just don't medicate it. I think I've been always supporting it through my general lifestyle with exercise and meditative practices, but maybe I should be medicating. My wife constantly tells me that I probably should, but you guys don't have to live with me to ask me to be medicated. Maybe it will improve my presentations at this meeting. I don't know. But I've tried Adderall for full disclosures and I hated it. It felt very weird. Like I was euphoric for an hour and then I couldn't eat for a couple of like I had no appetite towards the end of the day. I felt weaker the next day. I said, I'm not doing this. Sorry, family, suffer my lack of attention. But yeah, memory is very strongly linked to the attention. If your attention is poor, your memory is going to follow. So there's always a question, is it a memory problem or is it an attention problem? There are obviously ways of separating that, but that requires more of a professional assessment. Just a reminder, Steph, thanks so much. Just a reminder to everybody, please check out Beating Heart. If you're not subscribed to that YouTube channel, you should. Otherwise, you're not going to get the most updated information. They won't end up in your YouTube, I guess, the scroll. And so if you do subscribe, it'll be a lot easier for you to see the updated videos from Fred Johnson. Okay, well, there's no more points, no more questions. Julie, it's wonderful to have you back as always, and take the lead. You need to unmute yourself. You're still muted. Let me see if I can make you. You should be made a co-host. Uh, Janet, Stephanie, can you make Julie a co-host? Hold on a second. I can't make Julie a co-host.
Okay, I think we're good
There
now.
we go. Yeah, we're good.
All right, it worked. Awesome. All right. Well, hello everyone. It's lovely to be with you. I thought today would be a great day to talk about hydration. And it's probably a topic that if you've been around CIM very much, you have heard your providers mention because it is so important. And as we roll into summer, things are getting very hot and humid here. It's hard to do much without feeling like you're breaking a sweat. So I thought, well, let's just review the basics of hydration and how it works, what happens when we don't have good hydration in our body, and ways that we can make that something that's easy to incorporate into your lifestyle. All right. I am going to share just a little presentation. Can you guys see that? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So here we have, oh, I feel like maybe it's not working.
We can see it, but we kind of see it as if it's a PDF file. Oh yeah, and I think that's okay though.
Does that work okay? All right. I think it's
We
just
see
slow.
we see your website. Like we see the things on the web, but it's okay.
No. All right. Let's go with this. It's saying it wants to reload. All right. Hopefully that'll go better. All right. So we want to talk today about, I'm going to make this a little bigger, why hydration matters, particularly as we get older, common signs that we're not drinking enough or incorporating enough water into our system, and easy ways to improve our health. We want to talk about how we can make this easy part of your day. It does, I think we're kind of just jammed up. I'm sorry, guys. All right. Well, I don't know if anybody has ever felt tired or dizzy, had a headache, or even felt constipated, but these are all symptoms of mild dehydration. And when you think about it, 60% of our body is made of water, 75% of the brain, and 80% of the blood. So, this not having enough water can really influence how your body works and create symptoms that, if we're paying attention, we can address rather easily. So, water is going to help us do everything from deliver nutrients, remove waste, regulate your body temperature, lubricate your joints, support your digestion, maintain a good, steady blood pressure, and support kidney function, and even help your brain work. It's a really important part of creating energy at the cellular level, which is fascinating because we don't think about it as so foundational, but I've had people be able to increase their water intake and really feel a lot more energy throughout the day and very steady and really notice a huge difference. So it's not about just responding to thirst. Sometimes we have to think about it in a wider lens if we're having some of these other symptoms and make sure it's not something that we can address kind of easily. Oh, this is just taking a long time. I'm sorry, guys. So as we get older, we can become more vulnerable to having dehydration crop up. Our thirst response is impacted as well as, I'm just going to stop share and talk through it, as well as medications can create dehydration just through their mechanism of action. We can be, kind of worried about being able to go to the bathroom, having access to the bathroom, or being woken up in order to use the bathroom. That's a very common reason why people start to not drink as much. And as we think about it, all of those reasons are also why we want to make sure we have enough water so that we can continue to process nutrients, create energy, and clear toxins and things like that. So, when you think about ways to get better hydration into your day, we want to think about, first of all, not waiting until you get thirsty, because a lot of times by the time you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So, some habits that can be helpful is around habit stacking. So, assigning something that you're already doing to adding a drink or some way of increasing your hydration, such as when you take your medicines in the morning or your supplements, making sure you get a big glass of water to help with hydration as well as processing those nutrients. Things like around your meals, that can also be another way to make sure you're getting enough water. Carrying a water bottle with you. Like before you head out the door, just make sure that you've got some water to go with you in case either you get out longer than you anticipated or there isn't anything to drink, wherever you're going. Another way that can be helpful is to think about, especially this time of year, we have access to a lot of foods that naturally contain higher amounts of water. Foods like cucumbers and tomatoes and melons, watermelons. Let's see, just from my memory, what other ones are in their list. Um, anything, cucumbers, fruits, peaches, those kinds of things, they're all going to help with that overall hydration level. And being able to incorporate those multiple times a day will help you feel more hydrated. When you think about, we were kind of talking before this got started, what type of hydration counts? Really, anything that contains water is going to go towards your hydration level. Um, Besides water itself, we can look at tea, even coffee. There is a little bit of a myth out there that if you're drinking coffee, it doesn't really count towards your water intake. And that's not really true. Now, because you're going to process the coffee, you are going to use up some of the water that's included in it. But overall, that's part of what helps you stay hydrated. There's a lot of information and discussion around electrolytes and sports drinks and those types of sources for hydration. And, whether or not you actually need that to be hydrated is very individual. Um, I would say, if you are someone who feels like you're sweating a lot and really starting to feel depleted and overly thirsty, actually adding some electrolytes to your water can help get more of that water actually into the cell. If you're someone who is taking medications like diuretics that change the electrolyte balance as part of how they work, but to reduce blood pressure, that can sometimes be helpful as well to get recharged on that as you try to rehydrate your cell after exercise or even just in the course of the day. So a lot of times people think about various, ways of adding hydration. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can certainly be something as simple as adding a little bit of sea salt to your water if you're feeling extra thirsty and you feel like plain water is just not cutting it. You can also add some of those high water content foods that we talked about into your water. Like cucumbers is a very common one. You'll often see orange, even different melons that can help flavor the water and also just add that extra bit of hydration as you go. Um, the I would say one of the telltale signs of proper hydration is to look at your urine. Just throughout the day, monitoring that to make sure that your the color of your urine is a nice pale yellow. If you're seeing anything that's dark yellow and sort of looking concentrated, that's a really good sign that you need to start drinking more water and incorporating more of these foods. Now, the one thing that can kind of throw that a little bit off is if you're taking B vitamins. There are certain B vitamins, and you'll see it kind of show up right after you take them the next time you go to the bathroom. They can make your urine bright yellow. So just be aware of that piece that it doesn't always mean you're dehydrated if you've just taken a B vitamin. So thinking about ways to incorporate more of this easy energy providing, detoxifying nutrient into your body is really helpful this time of year because I think we can often see signs of dehydration that, things that maybe were working in the spring just aren't enough as we go into the really hot, humid summer. Now, a couple of things to be aware of. First is having these electrolytes that include a whole bunch of sugar and or added colors and flavors. So there's not really any time, I would say, for most of us where that would be appropriate. In the event that you're doing 2, 3 hours of endurance activities, that's where having electrolytes that have sugar included can be helpful and appropriate. But for most of us, we're, working out 30 minutes, an hour, plain water or water with electrolytes is plenty, and we don't need the extra carbohydrates in there. There is a reason for them to be in there, but for most of us, it's really not necessary. So I'm just trying to think through my slides. That's the bulk of what I wanted to share with you guys. I do have a link that I'll put in that has kind of a summary and some recipes that I like to use this time of year to help with hydration. All right. I'm just going to look through some of the questions. Okay, this is a good one. Jennifer is talking about getting advice to drink liquid before meals more than with meals to avoid diluting digestive process. Um, I've heard this as well, and it's not something that I've found is actually rooted in research. And when you think about the strength of your digestion and the acidity that's required in order to digest foods, it's not something that's going to get highly diluted with water. Because if it did, that would really be a problem. Because that stomach acid is the first place where we're digesting proteins, and it's really helping to signal the beginning of our digestion. And typically, what we find is that really important processes like that are not easily interrupted. So I wouldn't worry too much about drinking when you're drinking water. If you're someone who has a low appetite and you get full easily, that would be a reason to not drink as much water with your meal because it can make you feel full quicker. And likewise, if you're someone whose appetite is a little too strong, that can be a good way to help kind of trigger some of that satiety so that you're feeling full quicker. But I wouldn't worry too much if you're thirsty during a meal or if you need some water to help wash things down. That's not really going to be a strong enough influence on changing your stomach acid that it's going to have a impact in that way. Hypertonic osmotic pressure from drinking. Mark, I don't know if you can tell me more about hypertonic solutions and osmotic pressure from drinking soda. Um,
Maybe I can also help with this. This is a, Mark, I think this is a question that's probably overhead for most people. It's I think in order for this to be a real concern either way, I think the volume of intake should be massive.
mm,
Because, when you drink a soda, I mean, unless person drinks a gallon, I can't imagine, because the body will automatically rebalance the osmotic pressure by adjusting what's happening
mhm,
in the blood from sodium. And basically, sodium, potassium are our two largest osmotic neutralizing agents or balancing agents. So, you're absolutely correct. I think what Mark is trying to say is if you take a hyperosmotic solution like soda, and if you continuously drink only that, you could theoretically overconcentrate the blood. But I don't think that's ever been seen in a clinical practice. I think that needs to be done in such a pathologic state. Actually, I'll tell you what, it's usually the reverse. The pathology often occurs when people, for whatever reason, overhydrate without
yeah.
solution, without solutes. Like people just drink crazy amount of free water. There
Hmm.
is several disease states, right? So there's a diabetes insipidus when person drinks a lot of water and then they end up diluting their blood over time and then actually have a problem because they're depleting all the electrolytes.
Hmm.
But that's a
Hmm.
serious pathologies that we don't routinely see, with one exception, right? And that's the runners, long run, or some kind of a athletes that do very
Hmm.
prolonged exercises. But we're not talking about general state, as Julie clearly pointed out. You're talking about 30, 60-minute exercise. That's not
Hmm.
really relevant. We're talking about people, running marathon or
Hmm.
double marathon over 10 hours, drinking pure water and then dropping dead because sodium dissipated. Those level of athletes, they prepared, they're quite well aware of
Hmm.
this. I think in generally, that's not really
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah. And I think it's confusing because I think there's a lot, kind of they're talking about this in the beginning. I think there's a lot of marketing around electrolytes and drinks and sports nutrition, which is very relevant to a subset of the population. But for most of us, it's not actually something that is needed. I think that you can always experiment with adding some electrolytes, either from sea salt or a non-sugar-based electrolyte packet like Noon is a decent option. And just see how you feel. Because I think for some people, we do benefit from having a little bit extra help getting the water molecules actually brought into the cell with that sodium potassium pump. And that's where, in the presence of enough carbohydrates in your diet, you can trigger that process more strongly than just water alone. So, yeah, I think in general, my feeling is these processes in our body that are super important, like the function of the sodium potassium ATP pump, is not going to easily be derailed by normal day-to-day living. It has to kind of be extreme situations where we need to worry about that. There's lots of reasons why people should not really be eating or drinking a bunch of these carbonated and highly sugared drinks, and they're gonna probably run into other health issues before the osmotic pressure becomes, something that's gonna damage the cell wall. All right, Jennifer is talking about yak butter tea. This is like fascinating because you're getting a little bit of salt and some fats to help with the digestion and absorption. It sounds like something that I'd like to try for sure. Um, yes. Is it good to have water when you get up? Warm, cold, how much should I drink per day? Our general guideline is half your weight in ounces per day for just sort of your foundation. If you're getting in the sauna, if you're out walking and losing a bunch of water through sweat, then we want to add more. And I think whether or not it's warm water or cold water, whether or not it includes a slice of lemon, all of those things are not evidence-based in terms of having a big impact on your hydration level. So I think that's just your preference. For a lot of people and sort of in alignment with different ways of thinking about nourishment, the ability to support how your body works with foods that are warm or at room temperature, there's an argument to be made there. Um, Rather than introducing a bunch of cold into your body and then kind of taxing what your digestion needs to go through in order to bring that to temperature that is similar to your body temperature. So, generally speaking, if you've got digestive hiccups and you're kind of struggling, having food and water just more so at room temperature or warm is going to be easier on your system. But for, most people, if you are going to drink more water, if you've got some ice in it, then I think, there's nothing to suggest that's a problem. All right.
I think I can also address Mark's point. So, Mark, I don't know if that's actually true. I've never heard of
Mm,
concern about soda during diarrhea. I think uh, soda is going to get absorbed very quickly in an upper intestine. By the time it'll
mhm,
get, there's going to be no change in osmotic pressure in a large intestine, as far as I can think. I mean, maybe that's related more to really severe cases, but I'm not really familiar. I don't, I've never seen this concerns to be present with like even severe things like cholera or something. Maybe this is more related to pediatric states or states when it's truly like an ICU level, but I wouldn't know, and I don't think any of us would know. I mean, this would be a pretty deep medical intensive care level care.
mhm. Yeah. We do use osmotic uh, pressure to help support bowel movements with, magnesium citrate and oxide and things like that. So there is um, clinically, that's definitely part of how to get water into the lumen. But I don't really know that I've ever
Yeah.
interacted
Yeah.
with the soda being a
Mark, I
problem.
think you're up for talking about this once you get to know this more, because clearly neither Julie or I are able to address this. It's interesting that New Zealand will take major campaign of gastrolite versus lemonade, but it may actually be something quite real. We're just simply not necessarily seeing
Hmm.
this because of the, local issues. But I've never seen it on the inpatient side of things either.
Hmm. Um, in terms of the timing before bed, that's really going to be personal. I usually have people, if you're feeling like you're waking up to use the bathroom, try to restrict for 2 hours before going to bed without having any large amount. But I would start there and kind of play with it. A lot of times we feel like we're waking up to go to the bathroom, but we're waking up for another reason. And then we decide we'll go to the bathroom because we're awake. Um, yes, so I know this to be true as well, Jennifer. People in other countries, drinking hot drinks. I had a soccer coach in college that was uh, from Eritrea, and he was always drinking hot coffee. And we were all just like so confused. He's like, "No, you guys are doing it wrong." And I was like, "Well, he probably would know better than we would." So it's just interesting to think of how, culturally, what dictates what's refreshing. Um, and Sharon wants to know what I'm sipping. I'm drinking Noon, actually. I do a tablet of Noon every day just because I do sweat a lot and I work out, and it seems like until I have that, I'm constantly thirsty. So maybe that's just psychological. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I encourage everyone to sort of play around with their hydration and see what they notice, particularly if you're feeling fatigued or if you're wondering if your energy ebbs and flows have anything to do with the hydration levels, because it can be an easy fix if that's part of what's contributing. It doesn't really cost anything. So, all right. Are we ready for the wonderful Yael to help us? Okay, gotcha.
Or at least to move us into the woo-woo part of the presentation. Thank you so much, Julie. That was great. So because I like to be cute and I love to dovetail with whatever the other person, it's really good to be back in this space and to at least see so many familiar names, even though your screens aren't necessarily on. I thought it would be great for us to do stuff for the water element in yoga. And in yoga, the water element includes, all the watery parts of our bodies, particularly the lymphatic system, our blood, sweat, tears, saliva. But often the water element is also seen for those of you that know about the chakra system, which is about energy vortexes in the system, it's seen as sort of residing in the pelvic bowl, which can make sense. The pelvic bowl looks like something that would hold water if it's stable, if it's upright and not tipped over too much to the front or the back. From a Jung lived or studied the chakra system quite a lot, Carl Jung, and from his perspective, and so I just kind of want to. Oh, I'm so happy, Julie, you're doing these handouts. From his perspective, there was a developmental way that we moved through the different elements. So the first chakra, which is the earth element, was sort of ourselves as like a seed, as the potential of something. Like you could think of it as a newborn baby that can't really do much, quote unquote, but everything is in potential form. The second chakra is sort of when we are in our adolescent phase. And we could think of it as being really watery, like full of emotions. We could think of it as when we're baptized in our depths. And we keep kind of going up, just to sort of give context to it, when we, just like adolescence, when we're able to sort of navigate, there's no such thing as a bad emotion or a good emotion. What's really bad for the system is when our emotions get stuck, which we all know that they can when we're a teenager, literally, or in a sort of teen-like part of our life. We learn to go up into the fire element, which is either in the solar plexus, solar, fire, and that's where we sort of get very disciplined and focused. And it's through that sort of just do it mentality that then we grow to the heart, which is unbounded. And that's where true freedom is said to be found. So just to give a little context for where water is with some of these other elements, let's start with I'm going to show you a mudra and then I'm going to move back. But we're going to do a mudra that's called Kalishvara, which is all about time and space. A mudra is a pose, but for your hands. If arthritis or some other issue like that prevents you from being able to do the mudra, that's fine. You could visualize it. It will have the same effects on the body, on the brain. So what we're going to do first is, you guys know, like when you're trying to say I love you to someone, I actually do have arthritis in my fingers. You're going to take the fingernails of the index fingers together and your thumbs together. I'm just holding it up high. You keep that and you place your middle fingers together so that your ring finger, there's kind of like a heart form, your ring and your pinky are still curled in. I'm going to move now. I'm assuming that we're just all in our chairs. I always like to remind people, especially short people like me, that it's really helpful to put a couple of blocks underneath your feet. Yeah, so that your knees are even with your hips. So just kind of go into this mudra. I was holding it up just for demo purposes, but feel free to place it down on your lap. If that's not comfortable, just grab a pillow and place it down. Really make this comfortable. Soften your gaze or close your eyes. And just start by taking a few exaggerated breaths. You could breathe in through the nose, and maybe you want to sigh it out. You could wiggle a little bit. And let's really begin here to inhale through the nose. And imagine that on this inhale, you're taking that breath all the way down to that pelvic bowl. Exhale. And just kind of soften the areas around the hips, the glutes, the low belly. And just like that, we're just going to inhale down to the pelvis. If you want, it could be the pelvic floor. It could be more general as well. There's no wrong or right way of doing this. If you've showed up, you get an A. I chose this mudra because the water element is also often seen as the place where we feel either scarcity or abundance. And we often do this with time. We often kind of have what researchers called a time famine, where we're convinced we have to do everything right now and we'll never get to it. When we have like 2 minutes, we're on our phones sending that email. And where we really want to eventually get to is a sense of time affluence, not my term. Again, this is from happiness research. People who have time affluence, that give themselves time, give themselves space, live longer. And it's in this element where we can also find addictive qualities, where we can feel like we're drowning in compulsions. And so this could be a good mudra for just beginning to put a little bit of spaciousness in our lives. Great. As you're ready, if your eyes are closed like mine, dip your chin to the chest so that you could release the mudra. Take a moment, just notice how you're feeling. And then feel free to open up your eyes and then come back to the Zoom room. And then we're sitting in our chairs, like hopefully you're not like in Shlumpasana, right? Like sit on your chairs so that you're a little bit upright. And we're just going to start with very simple pelvic rocks. So I'm just going to begin to move a little bit, getting to feel where I'm almost on my tailbone, not quite. And then towards the front of the sitting bones or sit bones. And if you want, you could add in the arms just because it feels good. Some people call this happy bird. Some people call this sad bird. We could think about a bird in a fountain. Letting the breath come with you. Exhaling as you rock back. Inhaling as you come forward. Let's just do this a couple more times. Exhaling. Last one, inhaling. Exhale. Good. Now, keeping yourself on your sit bones, on both sit bones, so feel them kind of in your chair. Just start to move circles. So I don't want you to like lift up and lift everything up. Just be really focused on we're moving our heart over our hips. You could do this really slow. Obviously, we're working other parts of the body and other elements. Whenever we move one thing, everything else follows, right? We're holistic. We're not parts based. Good. Circle around in the opposite direction, really feeling those sit bones staying nice and steady. Oh, good. There's a couple of you doing this. That helps me. Thank you. With your screen on. Let's just do one more circle. Sorry, Jenny, I didn't mean to guilt trip you into turning your screen on if you were eating. All right, coming back and then feeling your sit bone. Maybe depending on the kind of chair you have, maybe you want to hold on to the side of the chair or a leg. Let's take our left arm up and just slide ourselves down. Now, there's nothing wrong with leaning over, but for the purposes of sort of strengthening through the pelvic bowl, see if you can inhabit this left sit bone a little bit more. If you want, you could release and just feel with your right hand the left intercostal muscles. By the way, this will help you breathe a little bit deeper when they're not so tight. But this is fine too. Good. And then let's just come on up and we'll go over to the other side. Again, leaning a little bit more into the right side of your pelvis. Taking some nice breaths here. And releasing. Come on up. Let's do something. Okay, so if you've got those blocks, move them out of the way. Again, this is just really good for pelvic health in general. March in place. To the extent that you can, we're gonna keep the spine long while we do this. And just bring the legs up as high as you can, better than sort of rolling back. Just for our purposes today, not in general. You could just let the breath do its thing here. This is a really nice thing to do too if you're at a meeting and people on Zoom just see you from here. You could always sneak in a little bit of movement. Just like you could sneak in a little salt, right, Julie? All right. Another thing that's really great for pelvic floor and for the water element, and I think very, very accessible, is we're just going to stand and sit. It's sort of like doing chair pose. There's a couple of ways to do it. So the one thing you could do is sort of hinge forward, keep your eye on the ground, your gaze on the ground, a few feet in front of you, get up, and then help yourself up all the way. And then to come down, you could do the same thing. You could sort of hinge forward and slowly touch down. Let's do that a few times. For some of us, this is going to be a nice, comfortable way to gain strength throughout all those important muscles in your pelvis that go through the pelvis, that also connect your spine to your legs. Okay. And then the other way of doing it is without the hinge. If you want, you could actually just take your hands to your heart. That will make it look like it's yoga. And we just stand up. And when you sit, maybe just kind of like touch your chest down. Feel free to sit all the way down. Yeah. And then come on up. So this is a great also thigh strengthener. Good. If you want, if this is easy for you, then just come down, touch, but don't sit. And then, yeah, we could just do a few like this. If you wanted to, you could also just for fun, move the arms a little bit. Inhale as we come up. I know my arms are cut, they're overhead. Exhale to take it back. Let's just do two more. Inhale here and exhale. Good. Come all the way down to a seat. And then let's go ahead and just do very quickly figure four. So right ankle over the left knee. If this feels like too much, just straighten out your leg and maybe you have the ankle on the calf. Just go to wherever's most comfortable for you. And then we'll just take it forward. Just to the extent that feels good. Some of us might be able to do the onboard look. I'm hoping you guys are feeling it in your hip. I could see that someone has texted, but I'm not going to look at it just now. I'm too far away. And then help yourself all the way up. Let's do the other side just to even ourselves out. Whatever version of this you're doing is great. Good. And then help yourself up. Let's just do one quick twist. So twisting towards the right. If you've got like a chair back behind you, you could always hold on to that, but not necessary. And then we'll just go to the other side. Great. Let's just end by coming back through center. I need my blocks. Let's put one hand on our heart and the other on the low belly, just below the belly button. And we're just going to take a couple of breaths here. Again, eyes are soft or closed. Imagine that you're inhaling through the heart and exhaling through the low belly. Some people say the heart is like the umbilical cord, but it connects our physical bodies to our light bodies. There's a natural connection between these two centers. And one more last breath, inhaling through the heart, exhaling through the low belly. Let's bring our hands in front of these beautiful, compassionate, powerfully tender hearts. We'll take one more inhale as a circle, and with gratitude to aim to one another, we bow. Thank you so much. It's so good to see everybody.
Thank you, Yael. Thank you, Julie. Wonderful to see you both. I love how these two in tandem work beautifully together. All right, so stay hydrated, my friends. It's gonna get hot, unfortunately, or I guess, that is the nature of our life and the summer, that is. So we'll see everybody not next week. Just a reminder, we are skipping July 3rd because it is the 4th of July holiday. We'll see everybody the week after that. Reminder, of course, if you're my patient, have something from me, please stick around. Otherwise, we'll see you when we'll see you. Enjoy the heat and hydration. Julie, before you leave, what's your favorite electrolytes in addition to Noom?
I find a lot of them very sweet.
Yeah, same here.
There's Element, which I think is like for a specific population because it has the really high levels of sodium.
Yeah, I think that's what Ashley's using. I find it very, I think that's specifically for like EDS and like
Yeah.
with pretty
Yeah.
severe issues. I think for a rich person. Like I like the electrolyte synergy by Designs for Health. They're
Mm-hmm.
not as sweet but they're much more pricey, I think, than some of the other options. Although I guess that's not terrible.
Can I share my recipe
Yeah,
that
go
I
for it.
found? Because
Yeah.
I just put in, I do sea salt, potassium chloride, magnesium citrate, and then citric acid. And then I just keep a jar of that. I've kind of like, I'll make a 10 version or 20 version, and then I'll add that with lemon and stevia and a little rose water. And then I'm really happy.
Apparently,
And
Mark,
it's
sorry.
much cheaper.
Very nice.
That's so nice. Mark reminds us that we shouldn't be American centric and that not everywhere in the world there is a hot heat right now. New Zealanders are lucky. Good for you
Yes.
guys.
Yes.
Enjoy your beautiful weather. But we've been so far, I'd say it's a relatively mild summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.